Being a powerful man means a quiet confidence, a quiet self-assurance. You know what you need to do. You know what's best for your pack. You lead by example. You're very comfortable with that. You have a calming effect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim the Powerful Man Matthews. Tim, how you doing, brother?
Fantastic. Very well indeed. You?
I love fantastic. Very well indeed. Twice in a row. I'm doing great, man. I'm having an amazing day. I feel great. Yeah, got a big day ahead of me. Lots of meetings, lots of coaching, and that's what I love to do. So life is good, my friend.
It's good for you.
So, Tim, today we want to talk about going to war, right? There's so much talk about being a warrior, going to war. I'm going to go to battle. But let's talk about what that really means to our subconscious and how that actually plays out in the real world.
Ooh, I love it. Let's do it.
So oftentimes, when you're listening to something, how many times, I can tell you this real quick, and I know I'm stumbling here, but just a little bit ago, I walked into the house coming from the gym, and my wife and my son were there, and I instantly started singing a song back from the 90s, right? I started singing this song, and I haven't heard this song, Tim, in probably, I don't even know, maybe 10 years or something. Like, it wasn't a popular song at all, but I instantly broke out into song. I knew the beat and everything else. And what it made me think was, I used to listen to this song all the time back then, right? Back in the 90s, I was in high school, and I play this song all the time in my car, thinking how cool I was, of course, right? I'm in high school. Testosterone's high, wisdom is low. And what it made me think about is how our subconscious mind is always recording. It's always recording in the background, even when we don't think it is. And it's the music we listen to, but it's also the language that we use. And so what comes to mind when I say, I'm going to battle for this? I have to go to war. I'm a warrior. All of these types of war analogies. What comes to mind for you when you hear those?
Struggle. And what I mean by that is, well, it's a fight, isn't it? For me, it's a really dark image that comes to mind. It's about beating down obstacles and really coming up against the struggle and overcoming it. And for some people that might work, but for me, it definitely doesn't work. We speak a lot in The Powerful Man about there being one destination and two paths. And that one destination is you living your ultimate life. And the two paths, so you've got one path which essentially is going to war. It's where you have a lot of stress, a lot of struggle, there's a lot of sacrifice. And, can you achieve success in that path? Yeah, of course you can. But is that path one that is often experienced with heavy emotions, if you will? And when I say heavy emotions, what I mean by that, alongside the stress, struggle, and sacrifice, obviously you're then going to experience, as I just said, certain levels of stress, certain levels of frustration, certain levels of anger. And ultimately, it's a perspective, isn't it? It's a perspective of where you want to operate from. And that perspective will then be projected out onto the world that you're in, and you will then perceive the world around you through that filter. And in our experience of working with hundreds of guys by this point, hundreds of men, they've often been in that position. And when they are in that position and they are seeing their life through that lens and through that filter, they react very, very differently than when they're on the other path. Now, the other path, what we like to call the new way, the other way, is a path that's very much more of flow and ease. And often, early on when we used to talk about this, we used to get a little bit of resistance from the men because they used to think that, whoa, flow and ease, I'm just going to be a hippie and I'm not going to take any action and, I'm just going to sit back and chill and go with the flow of life and whatever happens, happens. And, cool. That might be one version of it, but that's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is you being able to create what you desire in accordance with you being pulled by pleasure instead of being pushed by pain. And when you are pulled by pleasure, life is happening through you. You are working in accordance with certain laws, and instead of swimming upstream, you are swimming downstream. You start to be able to see things a lot clearer. You move away from being busy and you move into being productive. And as a result, you also have a lot more enjoyment and fulfillment and passion in your day-to-day life. Sure, you still honor your boundaries. You still, say no. You still only say yes to things that are an absolute yes for you. But you don't do that, but with beating your chest and having to stamp your feet and having to really prove that this is who you are. What it means to be a powerful man is a quiet self-confidence. It's a quiet self-assurance. It's knowing what you need to do and doing it, but quietly. You don't need people to know because you don't need anyone's approval because you are the master of your own ship and you're able to fill your own cup. So for me, for years, when I used to go to war, that used to be the approach that I took. And what happened, I used to go in waves of being burnt out, although I'd still look after my body and I would still, have a relationship and all the rest of it. Because I was being pushed by pain, I was forever chasing something. And as a result, I never really arrived. Whereas when I was able to make the shift and be pulled by pleasure instead, I achieved what I wanted much faster and much easier. Because the action that I was taking and the place that I was operating from was a lot more productive.
It's so true, man. When you think about it, what do people always say? You hear this in movies, books. It's one of those old axioms that you just know is true. It's enjoy the journey, right? You hear that time and time again. And you can't enjoy the journey when you're going to war, when you're going into struggle. I've been there, man. I've been there so many times, Tim. Like it's hard to even describe. And the younger I was, the more I would default to that because it was cool, right? You like these war analogies. Now, don't get us wrong. We're not, we have nothing but the utmost respect for the true heroes that are out there that are serving their country and their communities. We're not talking about that at all. We're talking about the languaging that people use. We see this within marketing all the time because it sells. Go to war, be a warrior, those kinds of things. But you look at this marketing, at least in the United States, Tim, and it's where I see this transferring into the men's movement so much. That exact same verbiage is being used in the marketing to recruit 18 and 19-year-old men or boys, really, into the military here in the United States, right? And so other companies are using that same marketing to recruit men in the idea that they're defaulting to this mechanism. And when you think about defaulting to the warrior way of life, when, we're that young, our testosterone's high, naturally, not talking about testosterone hormone replacements and stuff like that a lot of guys are on now, but just talking about that natural testosterone, you're defaulting to the mindset of an 18-year-old. And I don't know about you, man, but I did some dumb stuff when I was 18, in retrospect. At the time, I thought it was brilliant, of course, or I wasn't even thinking about it, but it was dumb. And this is the same thing like when we talked about language matters, but we all have or know somebody who's kind of a Debbie Downer, right? They're that person that's always talking negatively. And what happens? You want to avoid that person because their life is in a slump in such a manner because they always talk about the negative. We all know better than that, and we avoid that person. But what if you are that person in your own world, but you're talking about going to war, I'm going to battle, we're going to kill this. Right? Really what you're telling yourself is, I'm going to struggle, I'm going to push through, I'm going to sacrifice, and you're not going through enjoyment. And anybody that's ever played sport knows, whatever sport it is, When you're the best, it's because you're relaxed and you're in the zone, right? You can't be in the zone when you're struggling. You can't be in the zone when you're going to war or going to battle. You just can't. You're in the zone when you're in a state of flow. And if you want your life to be in the zone, which we all do, right? Everybody listening to this wants their life to be in the zone. Then you need to be in a state of flow. And this is the next evolution above and beyond being a warrior. This is the next evolution. This is something transcending above the warrior mindset into what we call the two paths. This is the other path on the other side. And this is where the magic really happens because it's a holistic approach to growth. Hey guys, I had to interrupt this show because I want to talk to you about a case study we put together. It's only 11 minutes, and what we do is we go over and show you how almost 300 men have taken control of their life, have already 4x'd their business revenue, and are having more connected and intimate sex with their partner using the activation method. Now, they're doing all this without burning down their relationships and without suffering and sacrificing for their health. We want you to have this too, so go over to thepowerfulman.com/11, the number 11, and get this right now. It's only 11 minutes, and it's going to show you exactly how these men have done it. All right, let's get back to the episode.
You know, I was thinking about what you were sharing then, and you know, I think one of the reasons why it was so attractive for you and I to, you know, really adopt that kind of mindset and approach, like you said, was, you know, because growing up, when you look at the movies and you watch, you know, the type of role models that the men play and what it means to be a man, how that whole thing is portrayed, it very much used to lead to, it used to mean that, you know, you would really go to war. You know, we always used to really idolize, you know, those men that were really tough and physical, and, you know, they were going to war in whatever way and means that portrayed, whether it was, you know, Rocky Balboa, whether it was Gladiator, whether it was Terminator, whatever it was. You know, we used to look up to those kind of role models growing up because that was the symbol of what it meant to be a man. And there were never really any real role models, male role models portrayed that lived in this kind of this kind of energy and state, if you will. But what is the current state of masculinity? Suicide is the biggest killer in men. That's a fact. Why is that? Well, is that because we have then chosen to adopt a philosophy of life, a way of living that doesn't actually serve us? Because what we then do is we put on that armor and we go to war, and we see those struggles as something that are signs of progress. So we seek them out. And as a result, part of that means that, you know, we, you know, keep our emotions in, and we keep a stern face, and we, you know, man up, and we do the work, and we, you know, show up and, you know, suck less and all those kind of things. But, you know, the reality is as well, there's another way. And like I said, it might work for some people. It didn't work for me. And, you know, the pattern that we see with the men that we work with is they've often tried that too. You know, they've tried that approach of really, you know, putting, you know, the foot to the pedal and going for it and even doing it, you know, with balance in their life, but still not really experiencing the level of fulfillment and the level of joy and the level of satisfaction that they know it is possible to live with. They know that there's something there that's missing for them. And I agree. You know, it really is another evolution. You know, what I love about what it means to be a powerful man, you know, I was going through this with one of the guys in the Brotherhood last week as we were dissecting the meaning. I'm just going to read it out to you. You know, this is something that we, you know, really live up to within the Powerful Man movement and this, you know, the Brotherhood and the activation method. Something that we take very seriously too, in a very loving way. But, you know, being a powerful man means a quiet confidence, a quiet self-assurance. You know what you need to do. You know what's best for your pack. You lead by example. You're very comfortable with that. You have a calming effect. Now, the bits of that I love the most are quiet confidence, quiet self-assurance, knowing, you know what you need to do, you know what's best for your pack, leading and calming. I love that. I love it. You know, for me, it's always those guys that are the most unassuming, but are also super productive that stand out the most for me. There's always something a little bit off when there's a guy that says he's really successful, but is really shouting his mouth off about it. He either isn't as successful as he says, or there's a gap within him of how he actually feels about himself. So he's pounding his chest and buying these cars and doing all these things in order to really prove and gain validation from others.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, we all know it's the loudest, the loudest person in the gym or the loudest person, yelling at a party is the most insecure. And it's by far. And you hit the nail on the head. Suicide is one of the, in the States, it's not number one, but it's definitely one of the top things. And it's growing for men, which is huge, guys. If you're listening to this, that suicide's definitely affected people you love. And it comes quickly. And that's why, why we're so passionate about this and this topic and this movement is we don't believe that going to war helps, right? You're almost going into a PTSD state to try to get things done to live your dream life. And it just doesn't make any sense. Take a step back and listen to it logically. Does this compute from your basic BS reader, right? Your basic BS meter that's going off. Yeah, it looks cool to, say I'm going to war, we're going to kill it. Yeah, let's go. Let's rally the troops, right? All these war type analogies. But you got to remember, these all come from World War I and World War II, where, the whole world was essentially at war. And, the governments had to really rally people to get men to fight and not, dodge the draft or whatever else. And so the media kind of took that on and became a whole persona that's still continuing today. Yet now it's an evolution. People change, people evolve. And this is the time for men to do this, right? And, the men that are listening to this, don't be that guy who doesn't evolve, right? Don't be that person. Now, choose what you want to do, right? I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. But I would suggest to you the possibility of continuing to grow and evolve and question your old ideas and your language. If language matters, if we're in agreement, which I'm sure we are, language matters, then you, like me, want to make sure that your language is on point. And this is where we look at, these things that are being portrayed in the media, in social media, and other men's movements. I mean, there's men's movements all over the place, and I'm sure each one has a different reason for what they do. And I think some of them just got stuck in some of their methodologies, and now this is what we do, and I'm stuck with it. But at the end of the day, what you call yourself and how you address yourself definitely matters. Like, you wouldn't let your child call themselves stupid, right? So don't be like, hey, I'm going to war. I'm going to battle. I'm a warrior. No, warriors are only built to go to war. That's it. That's all a warrior is built for. Be something greater. Go to that next evolution, right? And rise above. So Tim, when you're talking to the men, and I know we're kind of dancing around this a little bit on purpose, but when you're talking to the men and they're coming into the activation method and coming into the powerful man movement, and they've been indoctrinated with the ads and all the media hype around, going to war and all of these other things, and the chants and punching people in the face, things like that's how you're supposed to be a man. What do you respond to them? What do you say to them when they're expecting that is supposed to be the reality?
Well, the reality is, that works for some guys. It really does. Some guys respond well to that. I didn't, you didn't, but some guys do. But it's very clear, we do attract and work with a very particular type of businessman. And he is the guy that does have or does seek that quiet self-confidence and that quiet self-assurance. He doesn't want to shout the loudest. He doesn't need the flashy material possessions. He just knows that he is destined for something bigger and greater, and he feels the pull and he wants to do it and be it and have it alongside other men that are on that path too. Other men that he can have fun with, that, don't take life too seriously. Sure, they're achievers, they're go-getters, they honor their boundaries. They're committed to being amazing husbands and fathers and businessmen and just men in general. And they're often leaders of industry and business. And often, Doug, whenever guys come to us and they're at that point of being in the activation method, usually, quite honestly, they've tried the approach of hustle and force and push and grind, and it's just not worked for them. So usually by that point, if somebody is really desiring it, then obviously it's quite clear to us that they're not going to get that with us. But it does work for some men, so cool. Go and do that if that's what works for you. But if you're really committed to living your life and creating your life with a lot more flow and ease, and that, like I said, I'll reiterate that point. That means that you produce a result, and you produce it faster and easier. Because you have the quiet confidence, because you have the self-assurance, and you lead by example, you have a calming effect. And, for you to have a calming effect on others, just how do you think that you must be showing up in order for you to have a calming effect? By default, that means that you are going to be calm. What happens when you're calm? You're more inspired. You take easier action. You take the bigger action faster. You're able to be more decisive because you've turned down the noise. And you become hyper-focused on who you are and what you want. And it might sound a little bit cheesy, but you do that with love too. Love for you, love for the journey, love for life. And this is why, a lot of the men we work with become so in love with their life, so fulfilled. And it's I love the term quiet. It really is. It's a real quiet success too. Sure, we celebrate together. We have fun. The interesting thing about this, Doug, is the men we work with, they're all really big into their fitness, big into it. And they're all big, obviously, into business and achievement and so on. So they've got that masculine alpha side of themselves down. That's who they are. They've got that. That's not a problem. But for them, in order for them to really rise to the levels that they know they're capable of, it's about really polishing that side of themselves and learning to turn down that alpha, if you will, so they can turn up that intuition, that instinct, that balance in their life. In order for them to be fulfilled, the only way they're going to be fulfilled in their life is by living a way that's proven to work, but also by living with a certain pace of life that has routines in your life where, you're able to give and get, you're able to go and then, refill. And, you must have that level of rhythm to your life. And I love the guys we work with. I really do. It's almost like they're recovering hustlers. That's the way that I'd probably describe. So true. Because, I am. I'm a recovering hustler. I used to work 15, 16, 17 hours a day. Can I still do that? Of course I can. Do I enjoy doing that? Sometimes when it's required and I'm working in flow and I'm just loving what I'm doing. But it's not my set point anymore because I've realized that just doesn't work for me. Even if I'm going to the gym at 6 a.m. and working all day and coming back and going on a date at night and whatever, it's just too much for me. I just don't. That doesn't give me my biggest sense of fulfillment. Not for me anyway. So a lot of those guys are recovering hustlers, and they've chosen to live a different way. And I just love the guys that we get to work with.
No, I do too. It's so true. So Tim, take home points, one action step that these men can take from this conversation and apply immediately.
So as you start to describe what it is you're going to do each day, let's say, hey, I'm going to go to war. I just want you to start to notice how that feels. Do you tighten up? Do you frown? Or are you relaxed and confident and happy and at ease? Just start to be aware of what you're saying and how it makes you feel. And just consider, is that my most productive space to operate in?
I love it. I love it. Awareness is everything in business, your personal life, but also in your mindset, gentlemen. All right, guys, thank you again for being with us. And call to action is take action today. Don't just listen to these podcasts. Be the other guy. There's two types of men in the world. One guy just listens to this and moves on to the next podcast. The real man takes action and actionable steps. We'll see you next time on another episode of The Powerful Man Show.